unfortunately, Anil from Pladis will not be able to join us today. I think there's some emergency on it. So we'll get started with that right away. And it's a very vast and deep topic. I went through it, and it says strengthening the chain, building resilient supply chains. Okay. So first, I thought I'll quickly spend the next 3-4 minutes giving some overview on the topic and sharing my views in terms of what happened in terms of the current context. So as I speak, I think Donald Trump has become the president of the US, right? That also has some bearings on global trade, on India's relations with China, US, etc., and how global trade will unfold. And we'll see how those things unfold and what implications that has for the subject of resilience, since that is our topic today. Number one, and number two, I think we're talking on resilience. It may be worthwhile to define what resilience is. I think for our audience, in very simple terms, all the experts here, I'm sure, have their own definitions. I think it's the ability of any supply chain and logistics system to bounce back from a negative event or from a disruption, and then to make sure that business continues uh, close to normality as possible, and making sure that there are no hindrances to the different flows of materials, goods, etc., including information and financial flows. Okay, but post-COVID, I think we have seen what has happened, and we all know that resilience and risk management are always subjects which are taught together and discussed together. So, therefore, although the word risk has not been used explicitly in today's topic, I'll be definitely posing questions related to risk management as well, because it's very closely associated with logistics and supply chain resilience. Now, having said that and having defined resilience, I would allow my co-panelists to give me the liberty to slightly, possibly increase the scope of the topic to rather call it building resilient supply chain networks. Okay, I'll not call it only supply networks, because you can talk of manufacturing, you can talk of sourcing, you can talk of logistics, you can talk of planning, you can talk of distribution. So across the plan, source, make, deliver, return, enable cycle, I think resilience has to fit in everywhere into each of these frameworks. And I would not only restrict it to merely supply networks. And I would urge each of my erudite, experienced, and highly knowledgeable co-panelists to share their perspectives and practical experience in terms of what supply chain resilience means to them and how they have dealt with it specifically post the COVID era, that is post 2020. Having said that, also very quickly, I also want to give a flavor to the audience about what is happening around us currently. So as I speak, I think I've been hearing the terms deglobalization more often now. Okay, more regional networks. Okay, we have been hearing terms like reshoring, nearshoring, friendshoring, right? We have also heard terms like digitalization, flexible networks, agile supply chain networks, right? And to add to that, more complexities related to climate change, weather events, geopolitics, okay, global trade events, right? And not to talk about the role of generative AI, automation, and digitalization. We'll come to that as we discuss in detail. And last but not the least, macroeconomic fundamentals. I think yesterday the market, after the Trump news came out, it actually increased by 1%, and today it has tanked by 1%. So pretty much, it's the situation is where we all started, right, from, right? And having said that, the rupee is, I think, trading at more than 84 now. Okay. So given all these complex situations around us, uh, I think the topic of supply chain resilience gains all the more importance and traction. And therefore now, given this brief background, I would first like to start with Atul. Atul, if you can please unmute. I'll come to you first and put you under the gun now, right? So what do you think, Atul, since we're talking about supply chain resilience and strengthening networks, can you give us a flavor of the broad strategies that one can adopt to basically build supply chain resiliency? Because we've heard of so many tools, techniques, methods, etc. What, in your opinion, are some of those strategies that companies can adopt from a practical standpoint to build end-to-end logistics and supply chain resilience? Like I said earlier, I'm not restricting myself only to supply networks. It can be end-to-end connected logistics and supply chain networks. Yes, over to you, Atul. We're glad to hear your views. Yes, please.
Thank you very much, and honored to be among you, and my warm hello to the audience. First of all, let's start with supply chain resilience. When we are talking about it, was there since the time supply chains are there, right? The only thing is that this word supply chain resilience was in its infancy, right? whenever we cast in supply chain, we talk about the religions. As you rightly said, that it's nothing. It is just, you know, ability of the business to withstand disruption and bounce back. That is a layman's understanding and should be the right definition in all respects. What is the supply chain resilience is. So now coming to the point. Now, when we are talking about it, when previous supply chains, pre-pandemic, we were talking about the supply chains. Experts never gave it the kind of weightage it should have. It became the monumental word after the pandemic, right? So now, talking about all strategies around it, there are many strategies floated, standardization strategies, but no strategy fits all, right? So it is very important for us to understand from our vertical point of view, from our business line point of view, that what is the demand of my particular business and what is the cocktail of the strategies I should bring in to make a strategy for myself which makes my supply chain resilient, right? That is very important. So first of all, when we are talking about, you spoke about many standard strategies. You talk about deglobalization, reshoring, risk management, etc., etc., etc. But at the end of the day, how we combine it, how we make a strategy for ourselves, and how we use the different tools to achieve it. That is very important because moving from an academic perspective to a practical perspective is very important, right? So I will talk about some of the case studies which I personally handled during that time, where there were almost all the supply chain fell flat because of the stress of the pandemic, right? And people started thinking that what what went wrong with that. But at the end, we concluded that enough simulations for the likely disruptions were not done. When the supply chains were casted, there were simulations around what can in a limited sphere of the known factors, what can be the disruptions and how do we manage that? And that particular things were casted in the supply chain. But when this, and because of the cost factors, because of service factors, we started the, globalization of sourcing, blah, 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 to, bring in the most effective, cost effective, production, cost effective sourcing, etc., etc. But at the end of the day, what happened when the disruptions hit us, everything fell flat. So first of all, my strategy for my company or my kind of a business should be simulate, simulate, simulate. What can go wrong with the different aspects of my supply chain? What can go wrong with my suppliers? What can go wrong with my sourcing stations? What can go wrong with my physical logistics? What can go wrong with my data? What can go wrong with my resources? And then simulate multiple scenarios around each of the disruption parameters and then think that what could be the thing. For example, that if physical logistics is the one of the factor which is disrupting our supply chain, is the reshoring is the solution? If kind of data is a problem, is code verification is a thing which I should look for? If resources is a problem, then do I think of employing more automation and AI based techniques? If have I envisage all the possible disruptions around the area where I am operating, is then channeling it to the other production units or supplying it from the other things is a possible solution? Is if my sourcing is a problem, have I analyzed my vendor that how he is manufacturing and what are the sources he is sourcing goods from, and what is the different things, I can build around that. So that is, basically a combination of all the factors together, the cocktail of different strategies to come up with a strategy which can be brought into the picture. A very beautiful example of one of the FMCG players in India, which they have done. They have immediately shifted the essential goods production from another country to India to just keep on churning the line, which was essential for them to keep feeding the people of India. Right? So those are some of the very proactive steps which were practically taken by the companies. And to sum it, make a strategy cocktail of your own after simulating multiple scenarios of likely disruptions in various aspects of your supply chain, and lock it and start taking action around it. That what are the tools, what are the different sources I'm going to use it to implement it and encapsulate my supply chain to make it more resilient. So that is my take on it.
Excellent. Thanks, Atul. I think a lot of points you brought about. Specifically, you use the word simulation thrice. So that only tells me that today, if we have tools to possibly digitalize or model our end-to-end supply chain, or possibly create a replica or a twin, so that we know what can go wrong, right? And if we have a better visibility into our end-to-end supply and distribution networks, I think we stand a chance of being more proactive rather than reactive, and possibly our companies and supply chain organizations at large can become more resilient. So thank you very much for bringing that, because I think the other factors that lead to resiliency are well known. Okay, you build in redundancy, you bring in flexibility, right? And you have alternative sources of supply, which is again very difficult now, given the China plus one strategies and the success that it has met with. Very mixed success, I mean, to my opinion. And I'm not sure that that will happen anytime soon. But glad you brought out that example of an FMCG company having moved its manufacturing closer, right? And making sure the supply lines are intact, right? So thank you very much, Atul, for your insights. And now I would like to come to Nihar from Uniworld Logistics. Nihar, I think just a while ago I was also alluding to two terms called risk management, which are very closely connected to today's topic of resilience. So, in your opinion, building risk management capabilities also goes a long way towards making supply chains more resilient. So, in your opinion, what are some of the practical aspects and best practices for companies to adopt in terms of, first of all, measuring, monitoring, identifying, and then having strategies to mitigate those risks? Because we have so many types of risks today, right? Physical, digital, we have cyber security risks, we have malware attacks. Okay, sometimes how the insurgents attack ships today. So, and there's other risk to physical infrastructure. So, given this whole plethora and umbrella of risks that we have seen over the last 2 years, and specifically post COVID, and given the geopolitical background, what do you think supply chain professionals of the day should do in terms of identifying and then monitoring and mitigating supply chain risks? Over to you, Nihar. What's your experience been like? Yes.
Thank you, Sunil, and good to see Atul here. Atul and me, though we have worked in the same organization, but not simultaneously. Uh,
Oh,
Thank you very much for getting me here, and thanks to Mesimek and Dinesh particularly. Uh, to me, this 33 years has been a roller coaster ride as far as logistics or supply chain is concerned. Starting from a place called or a designation called store manager to today people talking about supply chain heads has been a journey. In fact, earlier when you used to go for a meeting or something or a party, when people used to ask us, nobody used to turn back and see, oh, you are a transport guy. Okay, fair enough. Today, when you stand and you say you are in supply chain, you see at least 10 people turning back and saying, oh, you are in supply chain, let's hear about it. So that's been the journey, and I think everybody here has gone through that journey. Till yesterday, nobody used to, look at us. Today, I think there is an ad coming up also where the Puma guy is talking about. Till yesterday, it was a hygiene thing. Today, it is a, kind of business enhancer for them. So supply chain has become that way. I think kudos to all of us who have spent time in here, a non-glamorous field. But when it comes to risk, I think end of the day, it is always a supply chain person who is neck is on the this thing as far as the risk is concerned. Goods nahi pahuncha. Hey, why my goods did not reach? Why the procurement was not done properly? The procurement guys comes up and says, "I did my job. The logistics couldn't do it." I think the way I have defined supply chain in my life is taking my life conditions or a practical the way I live. I see all supply chain all around. And if you look at closely yourself, our lives are at risk from a lot of this thing. It is not only the business or anything. Our data is also in the marketplace. You do a lot of things. You take a lot of care of your data. We are always talked about not to give the OTP and stuff like that to anybody and all those. So the risk is everywhere. It's not the risk in this thing. So it's the way you look at it. And as Atul rightly said, today in digital world, when every data is already on the marketplace, you don't know who is playing around with your data. My previous stint with SpiceJet, we had a time when all our systems were taken away, and we were asked for a ransom. And you can imagine for 2 days, this thing. I think as we move towards the digital era, uh, the best part is because we, as a progressive supply chain country till now, are not too far away from what we had been doing in our Excel sheets or in our books. I think we should not forget our roots. If I remember way back in 2000, when that, I don't know what was the term that time, everybody said from 99, when it goes to 2000, the era will change and everything will happen. And, that factor was there. So people said nothing will happen. We have all data practically also. Y2K.
Y2K. Yeah, Y2K.
Y2K. If you remember Y2K, that time, everybody was saying the data will not work, how will we work, and all those things. And in our logistics field, we remember, we always say, there will be a line disruption, there will be a internet disruption, there will be something. So, and the sales will not stop, or the clients will come back to you on your sit on your head. I think Dhritiman is already there in Ingram Micro. You know how it happens. So when you come to a 3PL, you always say, yeah, I don't know how you do it. So that's where you have those manual things. Today, what is happening is everybody is moving away from the manual stuff and is so dependent on this thing. I think what we need to train our people is still at the background, keep things somewhere where you can, for that short period, you can manage things manually. Digitalization is good. Digitalization has to come in. Digitalization has to be there. But then it has its own story. And when it comes to India, where you have so much of disruption in terms of, the 5G, why I don't know why we call it as 5G itself, doesn't work. When you go to Goa, if you have to manage anything in Goa, you are gone. Things don't work there. And one corner of the warehouse where the system is working perfectly, and the other corner when I'm scanning, it's not happening. So I think risk management is all about understanding where your risks are, first of all. And today it is easier to do that because you have the AI tools which can give you a insight of where your risk lies. Keep that in mind. Have a trained people in each department. You should have some person who is basically a guy who can immediately take over at the exceptions. I think those bunch of people have to be there in your team, and then look at areas where you can avoid those risks. So when I say avoid those risks, let's say for example, I know my inventory safety stock is, let's say, X, and I know that my inbound is almost what, 30 days, let's say for example. Normally what we do is we keep calculate for 2 months or 3 months, we keep a safety stock. But today, in today's world, it is just in time. There was a heavy discussion between just in time and just in case. What happens then? Those risks have to be clearly defined as to what can happen in those times. You cannot lock your money with extra inventory. You have to keep something like, as you said, Sunil, near sourcing. Also, you have to start thinking about it. If my sourcing breaks there, what do I do? In today's world, when you are saying China plus, and so much of geopolitical issues, unfortunately, in our sourcing or procurement, we only look at where the cost lies, because that gets 90%, everything else gets 10%. I think those kind of things have to be, relooked at, reworked upon. Obviously, you cannot compromise on your quality, but then at certain periods, you have to have those kind of balancing methodologies and everything. A risk is in everyday's life. Every part of the life is risk. Every part of the business is risk. So I think it is more to do with, as Atul said, look at where your business stands. What are you trying to achieve? What's your vision? And work around that. Now, as far as digital risk are concerned, I'm sure it is in nobody's hand. These developers, they have to also survive. So they have to break one system to introduce another system. So I think they themselves keep doing it. So you are not in control of it, whichever way. Now, if you say one cyber guy has clearly defined something and built up a beautiful system, now that means his system is going to work for unlimited times. Now he himself will break it because after a certain time his money flow is going out. So he will break it and he'll say that my system is not foolproof system. So I think risk is uh, first is your vision towards your business. Second is which are the major risks which will pull out your business, which are risks which can be like, I'm a big follower of TOC. So on theory of which are the soft constraints that you have, I think the softer risks which you can always keep doing it, avoid, have a look at it and how much of occurrence it's happening. But on the major side, you need to look at if my plant stops, my everything stops. That's and I cannot shift the plant. Like Atul said, one of the organizations shifted the plant from somewhere near to this thing. But to do that, how much of efforts would have gone through, what kind of a decision making would have gone through, I think they only know, and Atul, I'm sure, is aware of it. So it doesn't happen every day. It doesn't, what do you call it, the Tata Nano kind of a thing doesn't happen every day, right? So I think
Excellent.
finding the risk and what are the soft risks, what are the major risks, you got to figure it out.
Excellent. I think thanks, Nihar. What you brought out was there are no quick fix solutions or easy answers. I think it is better for supply chain professionals to be aware and to be able to also look at offline options, because there are tools and systems available there, but they also carry their own risks. So you have to have some sort of a backup plan, where your business keeps running and nothing comes to a standstill. So thanks for having brought out those points, which I think gels very nicely into my next question, which I want to pose to Jay, right? Who's from the wood industry, right? Which is in some way related to Anirban's industry also, right? Because Anirban has agreed before today's panel, he'll supply free plywood to me, right? Which he agreed last year, but it has still not been done. And Anil, unfortunately, from Pladis Global hasn't joined because for the last 2 years I've been asking him for McVitie's hampers, the McVitie's cookies. So they still haven't reached me. So some issue with his personal supply chain. Okay, right. So something on a lighter note there. Yeah, Jay, great to see you today. So
Thank you,
Jay,
sir.
in fact, as Nia rightly said, it's a very simple XY axis, right? The probability of occurrence and the likelihood of occurrence and the severity of impact. Now we all know that COVID-19 was a very classical black swan event, right? Because the probability of occurrence, as we know, it was very low. But given the fact that it occurred, it wreaked havoc. The severity of impact was so high, it was so severe, and we all know what happened for 2 years, right? So having said that, my question to you is whether we choose to, avoid, accept, transfer, or mitigate a particular risk event, what have been two of your key learnings during and post COVID? Okay. And why do you think that some companies prove to be more resilient than the others? So was it a functional issue, or was it JIT versus JIC, or was it a sectoral issue that some sectors inherently fundamentally were more resilient, or did it happen by chance or by design? What was your experience in your own industry? I mean, what did you learn? Any two lessons you can summarize for the audience and share your own story in terms of how some companies were more resilient than the others. So what's your take on this, Jay? I'm sure it's a very long question I've asked you, but yeah, you can try and contextualize it and help our audience.
So,
Yes, Jay,
basic,
over to you. Yeah.
basically, we are a wooden pallet manufacturer, a sustainable wooden pallet manufacturer. We have one plant. In COVID, we had only plant in Taloja, but after COVID, we expanded in Gujarat, Kosamba also. So during COVID, the key learning was we had, so basically, I believe in having ample of stock of raw material because all our material comes from Europe. Because in India, you're not allowed to cut forest. So wood has been, the pine wood which comes, it basically comes from other parts, other parts of the world. So Gandhidham is the hub for it, where it comes in the log form. Then they get it, we get it into our sizes. But my customers basically believe in more quality products because those are all top chemical and pharma guys. So during COVID, we got, because they get into essential commodities like food industry and pharma industry. So we got the license to manufacture our pallets. We have our own logistics. So because having our own logistics made a difference because then we could supply them the products they needed on time because nothing was available. And we have our own people living inside the factory. So during COVID, we told them that you just work, rest, everything will be taken care of. And we had stock about 2.5 months inventory we usually carry. There are a lot of people, clients who come to us, tell us, sir, itna kyun stock rakha hai? Inventory cost hai, carrying cost hai, and always nod my head. But this is the time when really things change. So all my clients started calling me, sir, we need pallets, we need pallets. And I told everyone that, you will have it. In fact, I got new clients also during COVID, during April, mid-April. And they said, we are ready to pay any amount of price, but we need the pallets. But I was not able to supply to them because I was not being able to fulfill my existing clients. And the best part was Ukraine and Sweden were operating fully functional. So I didn't think about what is going to happen next. I kept on ordering new material also. So during COVID, we had almost 30-40 containers lying on the port. We needed to clear that. So Indian port was working. That was a good thing. Of course, there were delay because people are not there. I had my production head and my supervisors, everyone staying at my factory. So that was a key. If people are there, you can do everything. If people management is not clear, then you cannot do anything. People think in the industry, like pallets, if you don't have a pallet, you cannot supply your goods to foreign countries. It is that important. So COVID made us learn everything. People said that, we can work from home, but not every industry can work from home. Manufacturers have to be on the field. So we learned in COVID that whatever happens, you have to have a forecast and keep buying stuff. Like my raw material came from Europe, I kept buying at whatever price it was. Because during COVID, the price has gone really down. But after COVID, if you see, once everything started, the freights of shipping went up and they went up so high. But we still kept buying because just after the COVID, the Russia-Ukraine war happened. And 60% of the lumber, which is called wood, raw material, comes from Ukraine and Russia. So all transport, all supply chain went to a toss, but the show must go on.
Yeah, I think very, I would say, very passionate, heartfelt reaction I could see in terms of what you learned. I think this won't be available in any textbook. I think all the speakers that have spoken so far, I think it's been very practical, straight in terms of what you've experienced all these years. And thanks for bringing out these perspectives, people in the floor, extra ordering, extra inventory. Because I, went through different industries and I felt some industries, didn't carry extra inventory by design. It just so happened that at that point of time, they had enough raw material to convert to finished goods and then to supply to the market. And then there were others that were completely starved of inventory because they were working on a just-in-time principle. Okay, order what is required when it is required in the quantity it is required from a supplier, and that supplier could not do anything. Okay, because they were bottlenecked and handicapped.
Again,
which brought everything to a standstill. Okay.
Taking a risk is very important factor to forecast. So
Possibly.
During the war, Ukraine-Russia war, this is a real example. My 50 containers were on board, like in the sea. So my agent in Europe told me only one thing, Jay, the only thing we need to do now is make the payment. So payment was of 5 crore rupees, which is not a small amount for us. Make the payment and let the document fly in by the last last aircraft which is going to take off. And I took that risk and I made the payment, and that was the last FedEx flight took off from Ukraine. And I got all my documents. Because if the containers would have arrived in India and I wouldn't have documents, how would I have released them?
That's right.
So I have family relation with all my suppliers.
Absolutely.
But this is the risk which you have to take.
Absolutely. I think very practical, and I mean, I really can't debate your responses here, or put it in a nice, neat framework, which of course happened thereafter. Today you have resilience metrics like impact on business, time to recover, time to survive, what is happening at a specific node, etc. Okay, how many days of inventory it has, okay, and how many weeks will I need to survive or recover, etc. So those things evolved during or post COVID.
Right
but
now,
very glad to know that you adopted the strategy of keeping inventory, and you kept buying, okay, and possibly that helped your
right now you
business. And I
see
think
there was a
Yeah.
war. There's the war of Iran and Iraq. So all the material which is coming from Europe has to go to South Africa from Cape of Good Hope and come to India. Usually it takes 45 days. Now it's taking 90 days.
Correct.
So you don't know what is going to happen when. But if you
Absolutely.
have raw material in stock, you can cater, you can fight to any situation.
Absolutely. Use it and convert it. Very valid point. I think, yes, you did raise the Suez Canal, Red Sea issue, the Panama Canal drought that happened last
Yes.
year, and all ships having to go through the Horn of South Africa, Cape of
Correct.
Good Hope.
Correct.
Okay, additional costs, delays, more insurance costs, additional lead times, transportation costs, etc. So thanks a lot. I think wonderful points again.
Yes.
Now I would like to switch attention to Rahman. Yes, sir, Rahman. I think we have heard a lot about nearshoring, reshoring, friendshoring, etc. So do you think any of these strategies practically work? Any good, bad, ugly examples, and what have you experienced? And do you think that these really will help companies to become resilient in the near to long term, specifically supply chain organizations? Because many people are saying, okay, you become more regional, you come closer to India, you move to Bangladesh or Vietnam or Malaysia or Indonesia, for example. But is it really practical? Does it work, or is it easy to move out from a country like China, for example, and set up a manufacturing base back home or closer home? And do you think that these strategies have really worked? Any case study, any practical example of anything that's gone well or gone wrong, etc.? Happy to hear your thoughts, Rahman, on this.
Thank you very much, Sunilji. Thank you, Samurai, also to a good session arranging the Samurai Awards. Yes, definitely, I will share my experience with you. Before that, I want to just explain everyone and every audience what about the nearshoring, what about the reshoring, and what about the friendshoring, because these are the three topics is very important. Then I will give my example or case study and everything. Okay, the strategies like nearshoring, reshoring, and friendshoring can indeed help firms manage risks and build resilience in their supply chains. Okay, over the medium and long terms. Let me elaborate one by one. Okay, how each approach contributes to risk management in resilience. Okay, now we will go for one by one. This is my first nearshoring. What about the nearshoring? What is the meaning by nearshoring, and why we are not using, or we are not going, or we are not entering on that? So I will give the one brief, short brief about that. By the moving production closer to home market, okay, and then firms can reduce transportation time and cost, improving repositioning the demand shifts and distributions. Nearshoring also allows to get greater oversight and operations, ensuring the quality control. This is approximately can mitigate risk from delays. Okay, the transfers and their geographical uncertainties while providing more agile, reliable goods chains that can quickly adapt the market trends. So these are the nearshoring. There we can use for this strategic or this you can use this term. Now going for reshoring. Reshoring brings manufacturing back to company home country. Okay, describing the dependency on foreign suppliers and their risks associated with long, complex supply chains. While it can come with higher initial costs due to the labor and infrastructure expenses, reshoring reduce exposure to trade barriers, exchange rate fluctuations, and overseas regulatory risk. Over time, this can create more stable restraint supply chain, better alignment to domestic standards, and quick response the times. These are the things are in reshoring means. Okay, the last thing is the friend shoring. Okay, now we are going for friend shoring. What we are doing this reshoring, what we need to give benefit from the friend shoring, and what is the good for organization. So now we got friend shoring involves the relocating production to countries with a strong trade relationship or aligned political interactions. Okay, this approach minimizes the risk associated with the countries that may have valid trade relationships or different regulatory environment. By sourcing from friendly nations, firms can reduce exposures to supply chain distribution, driven the geographical issues, economical sections, or regulatory changes, leading to more predictable and secure supply network. So these are the key things where we can use in our organization the nearby reshoring and friend shoring. Now I'm going for overall the strategies. Why we are going for the threes? Why we are not going? So overall, these are the strategies create more flexibility, risk, diversification, and agility. These are the four parameters on the supply chains. By shortening the supply chain lines, increasing the transparency, the choosing reliable production location, firms can effectively manage cost and risks and ensuring that they can adapt the changing condition in the medium to long term. So these are the main topic where we can discuss for this. Now I am going for your case study. Now we are lots of our experts are sharing what we are doing in COVID, what we are facing lots of problem in COVID. So these are the similar like we are facing lots of problem in COVID. Now we are depending mostly all agree with my people. Mostly we are depending on China. The all the raw materials mostly worldwide we are comparing. The 70% the materials came from China. So what happened in China? Now the COVID happened in China. That time we are all in trouble. So now EV industry, just like I will EV industry, now in the future hot cake in EV, what they are thinking ki now electrical vehicle raw material or some we are depend still we are depend China. 70% still we import and 30% domestically, lithium and everything. So now the China has political issue has happened, now COVID issue has happened. So now we discuss with China concern and we shifted this plant to Vietnam or Singapore or Thailand and any this group. Because now what happened, the political studies are different. There are some political studies are different. Now, if they are moving to Vietnam or they're moving to another country, they are very good, easy to India for the dealing and everything. So this is from my and we have shifted our plant from China to Vietnam now recently, and we have very good support from Vietnam government also, and very good transportation supply chain activity. They are very good. So now we are moving very fastly as compared to China. So this is very good example from my company and my organization. Over to you, Sunilji, please.
Thank you very much, Rahman. Since you come from the
Sunil, I will add one thing to reshoring example. One of the most
sure,
talked about case study, on reshoring was not related to pandemic. Of course, it was way back in 2016 when GE decided to invest, in America, their home country, and they have shut down their plant in China and brought small appliances production to America. They have created lot many jobs. They have reduced, or somewhere talked about, I don't have the data, but they could manage the cost of production because the new plant was having a great automation, right? It was having made in America batch. The people who are Americans who are buying American goods, they shifted to GE, and it proved to be a very good example of reshoring and a profitable one. So that was the actually, when the first steps were taken by the companies to uh, came out of China, and after that, many small companies started moving out. Probably it's not only pandemic. There were other reasons also. The patriotism is one of them, where people want to be, in their own country. And if you attach some political slogans to it, like Make in India, buy Make in India, local for vocal. So, your decision goes for really proven to be right one. So that was something which I want to share on the reshoring.
Thanks, Atul. Thanks. I think, yeah, so there are cases where this can work. And with our own country where we have PLIs in so many sectors, these incentive schemes that have come up now. And Rahman comes from a very interesting sector. He's from the battery space, electric vehicle industry, which is being talked about today. And I'm sure this sector is set to explode in the views as well. Now I would like to come to staring at me and waiting very patiently. So logistics networks today, right? And my question to you is, how does one go about making logistics network resilient? I know logistics network by themselves are very vast, complex, and deep, right? So can you help contextualize it and help our audience understand that what are some of those strategies, best practices, and things that practitioners can do to make specifically logistics networks more resilient in the long run? So we would love to hear your thoughts and views on this topic. Over to you, Anirban.
Yeah, thanks, Sunil. Am I audible?
Yes, Anirban, you're audible. Please go on.
Yeah. Now, so basically, I'll pick a few words what we hear in last 30 minutes, that we talked about normal and new normal. Now it is happening that the new normal is becoming a resilient normal, because the strategies we adopted immediately post COVID, slowly over a period of time, what is happening is changing, because people start believing that COVID is one of the cases. So we should learn from that, but we should not, end our learning over there, and we should, we have to be more resilient. And the debate between just in case and just in time, which to adopt. So again, there is a in between something. So it is no more extreme left or extreme right. Again, another balancing act is happening in last 1.5 year kind of a time. So in this, what is happening now, that we need to set our priorities, that what will be our priority, and this priority need to be practical. And on those practical priorities, we have to start working proactively. So there are three things specifically coming when you're talking about the networking, is that the flexibility, a lot of flexibility is needed, so that that if there is a challenge comes, the challenge to change. So if challenge is coming, how fast you can change. So for the change, you need the visibility, that where to change, which direction I should move. And once you have that visibility, you have to get that visibility, you have to have some intelligent choice beforehand. So challenge, change, and choice. These three are making a triangle, in which couple of things are very prominent, which we have to work. And I'm very sure that all of us are working on that, because one solution will not fit to all. In last 30 minutes, we heard that there is a plant is moving from one country to another country, compared to someone is adding inventory. Now, is the same strategy can go well for both the organization? The answer is no. So every organization, depending on their P&L, depending on two major thing is that what is your supply point and what is your source point. It could be different industry to industry. What still remains same for most of the industry starts with a diversified supplier. So there is no more one single source. It has to be for most of us. It has to be multiple sources, other than like if you are having very specific raw material which can come only from a specific source, then we are stuck. Then prioritize flexibility. So we are talking about flexibility, where we should be flexible. What will be my sustainable strategy? Shall I go flexible in my, shall I compromise my sustainability? As far as the answer is no. So prioritize that where should be my flexibility. And when I'm talking about the visibility, is track and analyze the shipment data. The shipment data, both inbound and outbound. Because when you are receiving something, your TAT is important. Depending on that, your entire supply cycle will be depending. Your raw material strategy will be depending on that. Your investment strategy will depend on that. So that is important. Similarly, when you are supplying to your downstream, there are challenges. If you are a domestic player, you will have a smaller challenge compared to if you are a international in an international market. So that also again will bring similar kind of challenges to make your strategy how robust you want to be and how flexible you want to be. One critical thing is that your procurement approach. Now everyone are hard pressed environmentally. If you're a listed company, you are hard pressed to ensure that your sustainability is poor. And I leave those formal pressure. If I want to be a responsible citizen or if I want to be a responsible professional, I have to take care of the sustainability. I'm a big fan of sustainability. So then your sustainability approach cannot leave on the scope 1. Your scope 2 and scope 3 is equally important. Similarly, for your supply network, your level 1, level 2, level 3 supplier, you have to keep on analyzing, you have to keep on channelizing and you have to ensure that your sustainability is taken care of. And overall, what is there in supply chain professional hand is the inventory. How well you manage your inventory. That inventory could be a raw material, that inventory could be your semi-finished inventory, that inventory could be your finished good inventory. I think a complete balance between these all can ensure that you are having a resilient network. So that is my initial take on this topic.
Excellent. I think you brought about the term sustainability in your response, and you are, in a manner of speaking, if I have understood Anirban, what you said is that you are trying to say that it has a very strong correlation or bearing on making organizations more resilient also. Because we can't talk about sustainability and resilience when it comes to supply chain networks in isolation. Okay, in some way there is a connection between the two. And as you said, yes, we are now talking about the resilient normal, because I think resilience, the awareness, knowledge, people, process, systems have to now be inbuilt within supply chain organizations, because you don't have a choice today. Otherwise, if you're not resilient, you can't really survive in this complex market. And given all the experts before you, including you, and all the global points that you brought about, I think we need to keep in mind that we don't have a choice today. Supply chains have to inherently be prepared and be aware about all the dynamics concerning sustainability, concerning risk management, concerning resilience, and these are all closely connected, right? So thank you very much for bringing out these points. Yes, Anirban, you had something to add?
Yeah, and specifically just 130 seconds that one strategy is not going to be a future. So like I am only depending on my raw material may not be the solution. I'm depending only on the my ability to manufacture, how fast I can manufacture. So it has to be a combination. It's a package going to be.
Absolutely, I think well said. No debating that point. I think we all unanimously agree on what you just said. And since I don't see my friend Soumya on the call, I'll quickly move on to another colleague of mine. Old is gold, my old friend, golden friend Dhritiman. Right now, since we have spoken at length about risk and resilience over the last hour or so, right, 50-55 minutes or so, Dhritiman, I want to understand from you. I've been hearing of this term business continuity planning, contingency planning. Now, do you think organizations are actually doing this in practice, or are they old documents that nobody really sees and updates, or it's only done during audits? Or are organizations really using live, breathable, current business continuity plans and documents which can be put to use? Okay, when there is a crisis, okay, when things go wrong, and when there is a disruption. So, in your opinion, how can contingency planning strategies and business continuity plans actually help supply chain organizations to become more resilient? What's your take on this, Dhritiman? Would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you for that question. I'd like to also take a moment to thank Mr. Dinesh and Mishmit's media for organizing this fantastic event. Although, as you said, it would have been better if you would have met in person, but no issues. In today's digital supply chain world, it is also a sort of a new experience of meeting digitally with all the experts. So now, when we talk about this point of business continuity plan, obviously this is not new. This has been there in the business for many years, and businesses realized that they cannot always have sort of a prediction that everything will go as planned. So uncertainty has been a part of business environment all through from its very initial stage, but more so now. And that is the reason I think in every supply chain discussion we are bringing this topic of resiliency, right? It has been a very important topic getting discussed in the world of supply chain today. So in the current scenario, I strongly feel that business continuity plan, a proper business continuity plan in place has got its very strong importance for the supply chain world. Now, you are actually asking that question that whether organizations do follow the BCP as it is written, whether it is really practiced or not. In fact, that's the question mark. Now, I cannot talk on behalf of other organizations. I can only talk about organizations in which I have worked. If I give reference to the recent organizations, previously I was working with a chemical company, and currently I'm associated with Ingram, which is IT distribution organization. So in my previous organization, we had a practice of reviewing the BCP at least twice a year. And I strongly believe that that is one of the main aspects of BCP. It should not be only a document for the sake of a document. You make a document and keep it in your closet. Thinking that, okay, when there is a COVID-like situation will come or there is a geopolitical issue will crop up, I will open the document and see that what I'm supposed to do as per the document. So what is needed is to keep on reviewing the BCP on a regular basis because of the very reason we are discussing. All of the experts are discussing that it's very, very uncertain world that we are living in. The ground and the base on which my BCP was designed last year, possibly that ground has changed. Therefore, I need to revisit the BCP and keep on updating the BCP. So that is one of the main aspect which needs to be done. The second thing is also BCP is a top-down approach. So the approach of the top management is important here. That the top management is aligned to do a BCP plan. If you look at the BCP, specifically for manufacturing organizations or asset-heavy organizations, BCP also requires some bit of investment, right? Because you might have to keep a extra unit somewhere. And if this unit fails, that this is the extra unit, additional unit, which will be able to cope up the requirement. So obviously there, the management decision is important, that am I ready to put that investment that is needed to cope up with the uncertainty in future. So the second aspect that is also important is whether the employees are trained on BCP or not. The document is made by 3-4 people. But is the document known to people who are going to act on that particular instruction which is mentioned there? Otherwise, when the situation comes and you open the BCP, you ask that, okay, person A, you are supposed to do this. He will say that, no, I was never told how to do this. So I think after forming the BCP, time-to-time training on the BCP is also important and needs to be recorded. Any change that is happening in the business environment has to be part of the BCP, and also that is to be communicated with people around. Once these things are taken into consideration, I think BCP will be a very, very powerful tool to support organizations. Just one additional comment there. One specific change that is happening, which is impacting supply chain of all companies and government decisions. So my advice to anyone who is making that BCP is that make a specific column on government regulatory related changes which might impact your business. Apart from only looking at from your business internal risk point of view, what are the government decisions that might sometimes go against your business, whether you are prepared for. I mean, you can take a lot of examples of those regulated businesses, right? And one single government decision of increasing the customs duties might impact the entire structure of your business. So I think that another thing which is also very important, which has to be part of the BCP to make BCP effective.
So, Sunil, I want to share one of my experience. I was working with a French company.
Sure, Atul.
Around the BCP, I want to share this example. So, what was their practice to live BCP, right? So, what they were doing, they were shutting down the head office for 3 weeks. Everybody should work from home. They were, shutting down the IT. IT should go to the offshore BCP, location. They were, shifting the customer service to, another location, which was in another country to support in case that there is, a need that your customer service cell was down. And they were doing this activity once in a year, right? And apart from that, they were also, it was, supply chain company. They were also shifting some customer on their own cost to another warehouses for delivery to ensure that they find a way to meet the tag to deliver, still deliver the goods. So that is how that, they brought out BCP plans out of the document and they lived it. And they were doing it year on year, right? And they are doing it, they are, working in around 30 countries. Probably they are doing it in 12 most important countries. But that was a good example, and that gave a lot of insight to them. What went well, what went wrong, what they need to change in the BCP as per the current situation. So that was a beautiful thing I have seen only in that company. So I just thought of sharing that.
Thanks. So you have also shared an example of how BCP really works. And thanks, Dhriti, for bringing in all the key factors and checkpoints that you need to keep in mind, in terms of how BCP can really become an operational document and how it should be understood well by the employees and how it can be used during times of crisis and disruption. And the important point you also brought out was incorporate all the government regulations, okay? Change in trade rules, change in government policies, any other internet policies, trade policies, e-commerce, quick commerce policies, etc. Okay, so that the BCP really becomes a live, current, functional document which one can actually look at and actually follow during times of crisis. Because we live in a world which is VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And recently I came across another abbreviation called BANI, BANI. It's called B for brittle, A for anxious, N is non-linear, and I stands for incomprehensible.
No,
It
you
just
didn't
blew my
hear
mind
tuna?
off. I
You
said,
didn't
oh my
hear
God,
tuna?
BANI, right? So yeah, brittle, right? Anxious, non-linear, incomprehensible. BANI.
We should listen to tuna then.
Oh yeah, please add. Yeah, you can add to the, please
Tuna
add to
is
the
tough.
BCP, sir. Yeah,
Actually, there are three different ones. Tuna stands for
crazy.
turbulent,
Okay,
uncertain, novel, and ambiguous. And
okay,
thereafter came in RUPT, which is
okay.
rapid, unpredictable, paradoxical, and tangled.
Fantastic.
And then in 1980 came this whole after the Cold War, which you are calling it as VUCA.
Yeah, Russia. Yeah, the Russia-US.
But
Yes.
before that,
Soviet
Sunil,
Union, US. Yeah, yeah.
Sunil, just to add on what Dhritiman said and Atul said, and leaving on to this thing, I think uh, the country that lives onto it with its manufacturing units and everything, and they have inculcated this thing is Japan. Because every time I work with a Japanese company, they come up with kappa. And these kappas are so well documented and so well followed. And they're, every time that problem repeats, they know which kappa they had done. Take out that report, and figure out what was similar in that. I think Dhritiman will agree to this. In fact, Kappa is one of Japanese. They do follow this and they live to it. You know,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
live in for us.
In letter and spirit, yeah, they are very particular about it.
Absolutely.
And documentation, as Dhritiman rightly said, there's no magic wand or some special algorithm here. I think it is about sticking to basics, about training your people, making sure your processes are up to date. You look at SIPOC and you simulate in a real world and see what's happening, like Atul said, so that if it really strikes, you are actually ready to handle these sort of situations, and you can tell the world that yes, when we say business continuity planning, we actually are serious about what we say. It works on the ground. Okay,
And
because
don't
when such
fall.
situations happen, that is when a BCP is tested. In good times, nobody worries, right? It's there,
And
it's lying
Sunil,
somewhere. Yeah,
don't forget India's key word, jugaad. Never forget that. It really works, huh?
yeah, absolutely. No debate on that.
Jugaad works.
Jugaad works.
Jugaad
Yeah.
really works.
I am a big proponent of Jugaad, and I think
Absolutely.
it works
But it really
wonderfully.
works.
Yes. So coming back to Dhritiman, and then maybe the others can chip in. I think this discussion won't be complete without the role of tool systems, technologies. Okay, call it AI, ML applications, or IoT, or blockchain, or cloud computing, or visibility tools, collaboration tools. Okay, control towers. Call it whatever you want. So Dhritiman and the others can chip in after Dhritiman finishes. So my sense is, what roles can these digital tools or automation tools play in bringing about resiliency? Because today I hear a lot of talk about companies looking at risk management software. Okay, so they can sit in their office, the chief supply chain officer can access a heat map. Okay, he can actually geospatially locate all his suppliers. Now what is happening there? Say a supplier in North America, now there is a hurricane happening there, so therefore the system simulates and tells you that your shipment is going to get delayed by so and so days, and therefore he knows the exact implications upstream, midstream, and downstream. So today there are companies like Resilink, for example, a very leading software provider when it comes to risk management software. Many others that all of you know of. Just giving you an example. So my sense is, when we're talking about the need for visibility, collaborative tools, everybody says my supply chain has to be more visible, more transparent. I should know what is happening across the end-to-end network, the extended network, etc. So what role do digital tools, softwares, technologies, etc., really play? And any example that you can think of that has really helped you to bring about higher resiliency and to mitigate operational risk in your supply chain? I'll start with you, Dhritiman, and then all the others can chip in, right? You're most welcome to add your thoughts on this. Over to you, Dhritiman.
Yeah, I think before we touch upon AI and ML, obviously any technology which is used in supply chain and gives visibility, that has been really helpful for the world of supply chain. I mean, obviously this AI and ML is we have been talking about this for the last 2-3 years, but before that also technology was existing in the world of supply chain, right? And we have this visibility of where is your shipment, the geo-positioning and all those technology which are already existing. In the world of, say, pharma, chemicals, etc. Because I have experienced it, seen it in the world of chemicals, that how technology helps the supply chain. We used to handle a lot of temperature sensitive products, and which we used to procure at a global level from other countries. And these temperature sensitive chemicals were used by scientists to develop new drugs. So these are very critical chemicals. That means you need to ensure that the temperature is maintained all throughout. It's not an ice thing that if something happens, it is okay, no issue. But it's a chemical which will be used in developing a life-saving drug. So for those kind of products also, I'm talking about 2011, 12, those days. Even in those days also, we use technology to see that the temperature is maintained from the supplier's place once the material is picked up till the time it is delivered to my end customer, and wherein the material would have traveled possibly 5,000, 6,000 kilometers of distance. And we could able to trace that every 15 minutes what is the fluctuation in the temperature. And many times you can see data loggers which has a sort of gap of 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. But depending on the type of product, like life-saving brand, you cannot have that much of time lag. You cannot give a time lag of 3 to 4 hours. So we used to track it every 15 minutes, every half an hour, what is the change in the temperature that's happening. I think the advent of new technologies, etc. The center point here, when we look into any technology, is how do you provide a quality product to your customer? That's the center stage everyone is trying for, right? And in that process, we are using technology. So from that perspective, when AI has come in, obviously AI helps us in many ways. And the way I look at it, what AI gives differently from other technologies, AI can predict the future also. AI can take away the limitation of a human being. Your 8 hours work, your fatigue in the body, your limitation to what extent you can think, your mind can think, etc. The AI takes away that particular limitation. And that's why it helps the supply chain. It helps building resilience in the supply chain to a great extent. One more example that I will give is, today for Ingram Micro, we have a platform called Xvantage. We have developed a platform called Xvantage last year. Now, through this platform, what we are trying to do is we are trying to understand the purchasing plan of our buyers, of our customers. And the intention of doing that is to ensure that on the basis of the buying pattern of my consumer, I am maintaining the right inventory at the right location. Apart from that, the AI is also helping me to suggest the customer that if you buy a product A, along with product A, unless and until you buy product B, product A will not work properly. Previously, these activities were done by a salesperson over a phone call to the buyer saying, sir, you are buying this, why don't you try this item also? Both will go together, it will satisfy your end customer, right? Today, AI is helping us to do that. So in the process, what we would have done, 3/4 benefits. Number one, I'm selling one item extra today, so it adds to my revenue. Number two, it is helping my customer to satisfy his end customer because he is giving a complete solution together instead of in bits and pieces. Number three, it is helping to reduce the supply chain expenses. Otherwise, I would have shipped those items in parts, maybe over a period of 3 to 4, 5 days. I'm shipping it together. So number four, when you reduce your supply chain transactions and the miles traveled, you are also helping sustainability in the environment, right? So that way, through this simple AI tool, you are helping so many different areas, your profitability, your customer satisfaction, your supply chain cost, and at the same time also environment. I'll stop here. I'm sure other experts will have a lot of examples from their experiences also to share.
Thanks a lot, Dhritiman. Yes, anyone else can chip in. We are discussing the
Sunil,
role that technology, digital solutions can play in making companies more resilient. Yes, I think
Yeah.
Anirban, you came in. Yes, please.
Sunil, so my take on this technology, first of all, that there are too many technologies into the market. And the challenge is that every technology, for us, their shelf life is 2 years, most of the technology, because it is changing. Every second year, there's something new is coming. So our take as an organizational level that first of all, we like to put any technology which should help our customer first. So what our customer can get a help out of the technology. And second thing is that it should be easy to implement, because sometimes what happens that your implementation, your integration takes half of your technology shelf life. And third thing is that we focus on must to have kind of a technology, not the good to have, because we believe that, and there's a big challenge for the coming generation is that the IoT and the different enabling software are getting converted, saying that it is AI. AI is, I think, little beyond that. But what happens that the solution, what we see, there are many camouflaging solutions which are not is a AI technology for us. Otherwise, now like for any supply chain professional, I think the biggest mystery is the forecast. So any AI can stand in the market and say that I am bringing a forecast accuracy more than 80%. I'm putting a number onto the table, and I put this number in many forums, and my supply chain friends never till date, till today, no, 4:14 p.m. Nobody came and said that my AI solution tool is giving me a forecasting accuracy more than 80%. So, that the challenge what we are facing also is a lot of camouflaging around in this segment. So, as I said that we are looking for that what is our customer best cost solution we are getting, customer need, cost, and easy to implement. So, this is my take on this topic.
So
I think
just continuing
fantastic.
with Anirban,
Yes, Nihar.
I'll let me throw a different perspective to this world of technology and AI and all those things. So this has been my discussion for quite some time. I was also associated with a startup which was into AI. We did something in Honda scooters and motorcycles. I think Atul is aware of it. Uh, we all as organization, I would say Jayasa being a owner of a business and Revan is also here and Dhritiman there. Uh, we all talk about data and then we talk about data visibility. We talk about implementing something which can give me a visibility and all those things. Just correct me if I'm wrong. I feel today, there is no software which is enabling or is owned by the owner of the supply chain, which is the manufacturer. Either they are with SAP or something like that, and SAP being, to me, sorry to say this, is the the biggest snub. So they don't allow anybody else to get into their system. But if you look at your complete supply chain with everything, be it a transporter, he has his IoT devices to track his truck. The 3PL player has this WMS to track your inventory. You have your dealers who have a DMS to track his own sales and everything. So data is sitting everywhere. But there is not a single platform, even if I was talking to O9 and this place, nobody has a platform where all your guys can come in and plug in and the data is streamlined, one. Two, and that becomes an operational system. Now, why I'm saying this is we talk about visibility, we talk about everything. But frankly speaking, when I go into any of the organization and see it, at least 8 to 10 different softwares are being used, be it from the production side till the inbound logistics to outbound logistics. Unfortunately, inbound is cost, outbound is revenue, outbound is controlled by sales, and the revenue guys, the inbound is by the plant guys. There's no coordination, targets are given in a different way. So I think the visibility today, what everybody, unlike what Anirban said, it has to be cost effective, because it changes every 2 years and all those things. The technology changes in the way the data can be captured or anything, the languages changes and everything. But I don't think your data from a logistics perspective is changing. Second, how you are going to kind of analyze that data is a big challenge. Because a procurement guy will analyze his data in a different way, and a plant manufacturing plant head will do his data in a different way than a guy who is sitting on the other side who is talking about dealers. Let me give you a small example like what is Anirban said on the forecasting side. So this was a very, it's on a this thing. When you go to buy any car or anything, you have a color set that I want to buy a black. Well, it's happened with me, and I actually put that to Honda and MG Motors also. I went to buy a car which was black. The sales guy suddenly started talking about gray. I could figure out that black is not there. So he was trying to pressure me, take a gray, take a gray, take a gray, take a gray, and all those things. And finally, I said, okay, I'm not buying. But look at this. The demand was for a black. What did he sell? He sold the gray. The data was captured was gray. Now, if you are the manufacturer, what will you produce more? A gray or a black? So when you talk about data, you talk about this thing. I don't think we are capturing data on an end-to-end. Whatever data is already there, as Dhritiman said, it's a tool where human brain at one point of time can think 3 or maximum to 4 points. Maybe a big data level AI can take millions of data and put it into one. But then which particular point to be attached to which one to give you a different analysis depends on the vertical head. Like a sales guy, if he's trying to look at a data and trying to figure out what he should forecast, believe me, I being on the sales side, I know my area so well. Even if my boss tells me that Nihar, next year it will be 25%, I know which customers to attack. I know where the thing lies because I'm not, even though the new market is not being created, but somebody else is doing it. So I'll have to pull out certain sales from the other company. I know it, but this is not captured anywhere. Neither I will allow anybody to capture that. But if at the last point, at the dealer point, like for Anirban, if at his last this thing, if these data are clearly as to what was the order, and because the inventory was not there, what was sold, if these things can, minute things can be, kind of collected and put onto a data, I think the forecast will go beyond, because forecast also is not on your, data of last 2 years or 6 years. There are a lot of other things which this thing, and none of the softwares today are talking about the other demographics of it. As you rightly said, Sunil, in one of, I think somebody said, I think Jay said, war suddenly happened, right? So that was an unfortunate event which happened, right? Now, what do you focus on that? Like Dhritiman said, suddenly Indian government comes up with a different law, a different this thing. What do you do? So I think AI or BI or whatever you call it is still, I'm a big fan of all AI and this thing and digital analysis because I've been doing it. But taking the example of Innova, and I always quote this, Innova and the previous one, I said, if the case would have been with Toyota, the AI projected this particular vehicle is going to sell for next 5 years, nobody is going to compete. But suddenly they took it out and put Innova. I think a human brain is more this thing. Definitely we should look at data to kind of, get a perspective as to what is going to happen. But for me, believing completely on data coming from a statistics, this thing, I think data always tells the truth, but data also tells you the truth, what you want.
I think very well said. What you were actually alluding to is, the classical concept in operations of global versus local optima, because we often look at local optima only, and we are not actually, I would say, optimizing for end-to-end operations across the board, which is easier said than done. And there is no software tool in the market which can solve.
Sunil, we can discuss, we can do
No,
everything,
no,
we can this
just let me
thing.
finish. Yeah, what I'm saying, I'm agreeing to what you said. I'm saying there is no tool which can solve all your problems or your functional areas. Okay. But the point is, yes, something as simplistic as calculating the real demand at the point of sale and interpreting it correctly. Okay, now this is a very valuable input you said, right? You sold gray. You may end up making more of gray, which may end up adding to your inventory, right? Whereas the demand is for black. Now, these are fundamental things that have far-reaching implications and ramifications for supply chain. But having said that, I think all of us agree that yes, as we speak, AI ML models are becoming more mature. A chat GPT has come out with a search engine which will actually going to take on Google now. It's going to challenge Google as well. So I think systems are getting refined. Okay, more complexities will be modeled, and it is for users like us to make sure that yes, it is at least trying to mimic reality. It understands our supply chain. It is solving for a customer problem, etc. All these things are understood. The simple point I was making is yes, that there is still a scope for trying out these tools and technologies and softwares.
Definitely,
Okay, at least as a
Sunil,
pilot case, and trying and seeing where whether they are able to address a particular issue first, and then whether you can then apply it end to end. As you rightly put it, disparate systems, production planning different system, TMS is different, WMS is different, sourcing tool is different. I agree completely. But today, at least there is a debate around, okay, can I have only 2 or 3 tools that address my end-to-end supply chain issues? Okay, and they provide a holistic picture of the truth to all the functional heads. Okay, which is easier said than done. I agree. We can keep debating on this. But at least what I have seen recently when I've been a part of seminars in India and overseas, okay, whether it is Europe, North America, Asia, etc., the debate has always been around the applicability of these tools, and at least in the medium to long term, okay, there is a scope for them to at least play a supporting role towards making organizations more risk averse and more resilient. That was the point I was making. Before I
Sunil,
close, we have about 6 minutes. Any
Sunil,
other closing
to
thoughts, comments from each one of you? Yes, Nihar, you want to come in?
Sunil,
Yeah.
Sunil, to very this thing, I think what the whole, well, I'll come to this thing, what we have been talking about today on resilience or building this thing, and you touched upon a point called VUCA. And you talked about volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and what we call it as the ambiguity and all. There is a positive side to it. If you know this, VUCA has a positive side to it, which defines the different how you look at VUCA. V stands for vision. If you have your vision clear, then volatility and everything you will always automatically figure it out, right? And when you talk about uncertainty, it is about understanding. So if you go deeper and see what is uncertainty, is your understanding of the situation. Because when you are not aware of a particular situation, it becomes an uncertain situation for you, right? And when you talk about complexity, obviously a physics guy will look at history as a complex subject, isn't it? So you have to have clarity. Opposite of complexity is you have to have a clarity as to what you are looking for. Are you okay with the subject? If not, take somebody's help, right? And then you said ambiguity. The life is full of ambiguous things. But what you do in this situation is adaptable. So I would put it as VUCA as vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability. It's not me. It's actually Bob who has defined this. But looking at VUCA on a positive side will give you all the answers that you need in terms of how you want to build our resilient district.
Sunil, my take in 2 lines is very simple.
Yes,
I think, this is relatively new terms for us, AI and ML, still in its adolescent age. But we are in a state of denial that whether they work or they don't work. But few years down the line, they are going to be essential part of our lives. If you see a little deeper into the projects, into the kind of the mature projects which have taken help from this scientific projects, plastic projects, Chandrayaan project, for example, where these technologies have of immense aid, right? So there was a maneuver performed on Chandrayaan based on the simulation done through AIB, right? And because of that, there was some significant gains in the mission, right? So that is a mature stage of this. In our world, in the world of business, still we are not at that stage where that is, kind of maturity into these technologies have come into the play with us, right? So that is where I will like to, say these are going to stay with us. These technologies are going to take a lot of, role of ours in future. But let this technology come to a maturity stage as it has matured in the scientific side of the, things. So that is where my take is on AI and technologies.
fantastic. Final 2 minutes. Anyone wants to chip in with closing thoughts, comments on the subject we discussed today? Strengthening supply chains, making supply chains more resilient. So, any closing thoughts or comments? We have about
But
2-3 minutes left.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
nobody talked about innovation in our whole this thing as to, that's a key point in a whole supply chain. I think day
Yeah,
in,
you
day
just
out,
spoke about it now, right? So you have 2 minutes. Yeah, you can go on.
Anirban, Dhritiman, we all sitting here. I think Mr. Rahman is also here. I think one of the key points that we have is, keep innovating. So within supply chain, what I always believe is with the wink of an eye, things change. Today, what we are talking here might have been already implemented somewhere else, and it's already happening. So I think keeping an open mind to innovations, keeping an open mind to listening to your surroundings, and keep doing as Atul is always stressing on this on simulations and stuff. I think every simulation brings you back an innovation or an innovating point. I think within supply chain, I think we are now people who are much looked after, because we are no more hygiene stuff. We are more of a business enabler. And with us in these seats, if we do not look at innovations, I think most of the things won't happen.
Excellent. So very quickly, any of you, do you want to, any top of the mind, one or two top people skills, that supply chain professionals need to develop or learn quickly to be part of resilient organization?
Yeah.
I mean, how does one talk resilience in a company? Yeah, any quick people skills or any skills that SEM professionals need to learn or adapt to or quickly imbibe? Yes, Dhritiman, you had something to say, please.
Yeah, no, I mean, just taking the point what Nihar has mentioned on the innovation. Now, when we talk about the world of supply chain, see, for me personally, the reason many years back I moved from finance to supply chain, with all due respect to the world of finance, is because the world of supply chain gives me the opportunity to try out my own ideas instead of simply following the rule book, what is written in the rule book. So I think that is the very nature of the world of supply chain, and that's what is expected from the future supply chain leaders also. That you, the resiliency and the risk and all those things are permanent. It is not one time. It will keep on happening. But when something happens, how differently you can find out a solution to serve your customers. That should be the methodology. And that thing, for doing that thing, one of the constant thing that needs to be adopted as a skill is continuous learning, learning from others. Like this kind of discussion that we are having is an opportunity to learn, right? What Anirban is doing in his industry, what Nihar is doing, what Atul is doing, what Jaysha is doing, what Rahman is doing. So we are actually learning from each other. See, this particular learning goes a long way. When I am facing a similar kind of situation tomorrow, I'll be giving reference to, okay, I learned it there, so let me try it out here. Do a simulation in whatsoever. I think those two are the major skills that needs to be.
Superb. Does anyone else want to chip in? Nihar, Rahman, Atul, Anirban, anyone before we close?
Yeah, so as Niyarji said that no one's talking about innovation, but we really need to, as in supply chain, because we really need to keep on innovating, as he rightly said. So we are innovating, as in we are now planning, I mean not planning, but we are already manufacturing pallets made from sustainable wood. And what is sustainable wood? Wood which is grown to cut, which falls under PEFC or FSC certification. So we are doing that, and there is a huge demand for that in the market. And now we are working on ESG credit as well.
Yeah, that's great, Jay. I think we need to talk after this.
Yes, 100%.
Fantastic. Any
No,
other closing
product
comments?
innovation is always
Yes.
there. I'm saying innovations in ideas of implementing in supply chain is one of the key ones that, it is not that one particular way is always the only way. There are different ways to look at things. There are different ways to look at this thing, but people who can take that risk can always come out successful. Or else what's happened? My take is what will happen? End of the day, you'll come to zero. You will never go to minus, right? Like if you're innovating something, trying to find out another way, you'll come back to zero. But why trying? If you find a better way, why not? So
Absolutely, absolutely. I think completely agree there. And thanks, Nihar, for giving a very positive spin to VUCA and for sharing a very frank thoughts on digital tools and technologies. I think through the course of the last hour and a half, I learned a lot from each one of you. Thank you so much, Anirban, Atul, Nihar, Dhritiman, Rahman, and Jay for sharing your thoughts and perspectives on a very vast, deep, and complex topic related to logistics and supply chain resiliency and risk management. And I think we discussed a lot of people, process, system aspects, a lot of practical inputs and insights that each one of you shared. And I think the jury is out that we all know that the tools, methods, and the know-how is there. But I think it is about adapting. It is about being aware of what is happening from a macro standpoint around us, because now we cannot be oblivious to all the external complex developments that are shaping our own global trade and our own supply chains at large. And we should be aware of, okay, elections in the US now, elections in the state of Jharkhand and Maharashtra, it could have some impact on supply chains. okay, new government ruling, budget in February. I think all these complex factors have their own roles to play. And my only take is that, as all of you rightly put it, there are no easy or straightforward answers. I think supply chains are more complex than ever, and I'll just summarize it by saying that we all live and die with three V's in supply chains: visibility, variability, and velocity, right? So velocity and visibility is what we actually crave for, and inherent variability of a supply chain system can never be nullified. We can only control it. Okay, and given all the other terms that I used, VUCA, BANI, and I think we can create our own lexicon, Nihar. We can,
Yeah.
add all these short forms, the ones that you used, right? And I think it only goes on to emphasize the fact that we live in very uncertain, complex, unpredictable times. And to bring in some method to this madness, I think all of you shared your experiences, gave a lot of practical insights and examples in terms of building supply chain resiliency and making organizations more aware about the risks around them, right? And it was a great experience that I had talking to each one of you. And we have paucity of time, therefore it's 4:35, and I felt that we should stop. Otherwise, I don't know, I'll get some call from some AI system saying that Sunil, you have to stop now, right? You've already exceeded the time. So we started 5 minutes late. So I thought I'll give you all time till 4:35. But
Is there a time
absolute
for
pleasure talking to each one of you, and it was great moderating this session. And once again, a big thank you to Dinesh and his team, to Meshmix Media, to the
are
entire
we
team
taking any
organizing the
questions?
Samurai Awards. Yeah, and looking forward to many more sessions. And I'll just give him a feedback which I gave on air also. I guess it will be great to have these discussions offline, in person, right? At
The
a
one-to-one
separate
would be
venue.
more beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, to a wider audience as well. I'm sure this is going to be aired on YouTube later. Okay, it's been live streamed now through different media, so I'm very happy to note that. And I'm sure that we all learn from each other, and the field of supply chain grows, our knowledge grows collectively. And thank you once again, all of you. I think I had a great time today, and looking forward to many more such meaningful conversations around the field of logistics and supply chain. And I'm so glad that we are having such interesting debates. So thank you once again to each of my co-panelists. It was an absolute pleasure hosting you today, and looking forward to meeting you in person at some time in future. Hope we cross paths very soon. And wish you all a very happy New Year, season's greetings, Merry Christmas, New Year, and good luck to each one of you to manage your own supply chains and wade through all these complexities and chaos that we see. And thank you. That's it from my side. Any closing thoughts, comments, and then I think we'll go off here. Thank you.
No, but before that, are we taking any questions?
I don't know. I haven't received any because it's already 4:37. So maybe the gentleman here, can he help us? There's somebody from Meshmix here. I haven't received anything, of course, on the chat or on my WhatsApp, because I guess we've run out of time. So maybe the audience will connect with us separately. Yeah, I see something on
No
the chat.
questions yet.
Yeah, no questions yet. Yeah, so that's fine. I think they've all heard us patiently. Those that have joined. And at least I had a lot of fun, and it was great interacting with each one of you.
I think Sunil, thank you very much for moderating this on such a beautiful day. You were full of energy,
Thank you.
and
Thank
your
you very
knowledge
much.
on supply chain is also pretty vast. And, good that you connected all the points,
Thank
and
you.
good to see some old faces here, Atul. Seeing you after a long, long time. And let's catch up sometime, guys. In
Of
fact,
course.
after this, and
Yes. Yeah.
definitely. It's not only
Exchange
this
more notes
platform.
and
I
ideas.
think
It's a small world.
now that we see
Yeah.
our faces, and I being from the service side and from the consultancy side, I might be visiting you guys anytime just to have these discussions to figure out what's next. Good for me. Thank you very
You're more
much.
than welcome to
Thank
visit
you.
us.
Definitely, Jay, I'll be definitely coming over and talking about Rahman and on the EV and the batteries and stuff like that. So I'll be there with you, Rahman, anytime. So I'll figure out where you are based out of, and I'll come over and meet you sometime. So thank you very much. Thank you, Dhritiman. Thank you, Anirban. Atul, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Sunil.
you.
Jay,
Thank you, everyone.
thank you,
Absolute
and
pleasure.
thank you,
Good evening,
Dinesh.
everyone. Take care. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Have a
Cheers.
great
Thank you.
weekend. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Absolute pleasure. Bye.